You just bought a brand new car. It has that new car smell, the paint is flawless, and the engine feels tight. You roll off the lot and you think, I'm going to take care of this thing. I'm going to follow the maintenance schedule, and this car is going to last me 10 years. But I'm here to tell you that if you skipped the first most critical and most forgotten step in your car's life, you just damaged your engine and cut its lifespan short, all before the first oil change. You might think, engines are built so well now. They don't need a break-in period. And that is exactly what the manufacturer wants you to think. But the truth is, never drive your brand new car like this. You are grinding years of life off your engine's internal parts, and it's something you can never fix later. I've been around cars my whole life. I've rebuilt engines. I've worked in dealerships, and I've seen the difference between an engine that was properly broken in and one that was just driven like normal right off the showroom floor. The difference years down the line is shocking. It's the difference between an engine that burns oil and constantly gives you trouble and an engine that is smooth, powerful, and hits high mileage without any issues. The break-in procedure isn't some old myth from the 1950s. It's a crucial, high-stakes battle happening inside your engine right now. It is where tiny, microscopic imperfections on metal surfaces either grind themselves smooth and seal perfectly, or they start tearing each other up, leaving you with less power and a shorter engine life. If you have a new car, or if you plan to buy one soon, this video is the single most important thing you can watch. We're going to dive deep into exactly what's happening inside your engine during these first critical miles and how you can save your car from an early grave. The main problem is that most modern car manuals give confusing, vague, or frankly, terrible advice on the break-in period. Some manuals just say, avoid hard acceleration for the first 500 miles. Others barely mention it at all. The dealerships, they just want you to drive off happy. They don't want to tell you, hey, don't drive this like a maniac for the next month. This silence is creating a huge challenge for car owners. It tricks you into thinking your engine is ready for anything right out of the factory. You see a clear road, you floor it once or twice, maybe you take a long highway trip the first weekend. Every single one of those actions is a massive mistake during the break-in period. The challenge is this. We need to figure out what those critical components inside the engine are really doing during those first few hundred miles and how to treat them so they bond and seat perfectly for a lifetime of hard work instead of wearing out quickly. Think of it like setting a bone after a bad break. If you don't do it right in the first hour, the bone heals crooked and it will give you pain and problems forever. Your engine's break-in is the exact same thing, but instead of bone, it's pistons, cylinder walls, and gear teeth. Let's get into the nitty-gritty of what's happening. The whole reason we need a break-in is because of three main components. The piston rings, the cylinder walls, and the gearbox are differential gears. When a brand new engine is put together, the cylinder walls, the inside of the engine where the piston moves up and down, are cross-hatched. If you could see them under a microscope, they look like a superfine waffle iron. These tiny little crosshatches are there to hold a layer of oil. The piston rings are not perfectly smooth. They are designed to be slightly rough. The first few hours the engine runs, those slightly rough piston rings need to wear down the microscopic peaks of the crosshatching on the cylinder wall. This process, called seating, is what creates a perfect airtight seal. This seal is absolutely essential because it stops two things from happening.
It stops combustion gases, power, from escaping past the rings and into your oil pan. This is called blow-by. Too much blow-by means you lose power and your oil gets contaminated faster. It stops oil from creeping up past the rings and into the combustion chamber, where it gets burned off. This is why engines with poor break-in start burning oil much earlier in their life. Now, here is the secret to getting this perfect seal. The piston rings need pressure. If you drive your car at a constant low RPM, say 50 miles per hour on the highway in top gear, the piston rings aren't pushing hard enough against the cylinder wall. They just kind of glide over the surface. The oil gets hot, the tolerances loosen up, and those rough spots don't get ground down. They just get polished, and once they are polished without seating properly, they will never seat properly later on. You have created an engine that will always have a little bit of blow-by and will likely burn oil. This is why the common advice to avoid high RPMs and avoid fast acceleration is incomplete and misleading. You actually need some pressure and varying RPMs. The break-in doesn't stop at the engine. It's happening in your transmission, manual or automatic, and the differential, which is the part that sends power to your wheels. Inside, these parts are dozens of tiny gears, all meshing together for the first time. They have tiny high spots just like the cylinder walls. If you constantly run the transmission in one gear or put excessive strain on it right away, like towing or track driving, those high spots get overloaded. Instead of smoothly wearing down, they chip, pit, or create stress points. This leads to early wear, noise, and ultimately a transmission or differential failure years before it should happen. They need to be run, but they need to be run gently and through a full range of load and temperature cycles. This means you need to let the transmission shift through all its gears, and the gears need to experience different levels of load, not just one constant, boring load. So, forget what the manual told you about just keeping it under 3 cent RPMs. That's too simple. Here is the real, hands-on, 3-step procedure that professional engine builders and mechanics know. Phase 1. The first 20 miles. The initial seating. This is the most critical time, the first half hour of driving. Do not drive straight onto the highway. Stay on back roads, city streets, or anywhere you have stop signs, traffic lights, and hills. The goal here is to vary the load and the RPMs constantly. You need to accelerate up to about 75% throttle, not 100%, but a nice strong push, then immediately let off the gas and coast or brake gently. You want to bring the RPMs up into the mid-range, say between 2500 and 4 cent RPM, depending on your engine, and then let the engine decelerate itself. This back-and-forth action creates high pressure followed by high vacuum. The high pressure seats the rings, and the high vacuum helps pull any debris off the cylinder walls. Repeat this cycle hundreds of times over the first 20 miles. Think of it as a workout for the engine, where it never gets to rest in a comfortable spot. Critical point. You must never let the engine idle for more than a minute or two. Long idling times during break-in are a disaster. When the engine idles, there is almost no pressure on the rings. Oil can then splash up past the rings and cook, causing a carbon buildup that will permanently block the rings from seating later on.
Phase 2. Miles 20 to 500. The stress-free stretch. Now that the initial aggressive seating has happened, we move into the main phase. The goal is to continue varying everything, but to start stretching the engine's legs slightly. RPMs. Continue to vary the engine speed. If you have a long trip, do not use cruise control. Manually increase and decrease your speed every few minutes. Drive for 5 minutes at 60 mph, then 5 minutes at 70 mph, then drop down to 55 mph. You want the engine to be running at 2800 RPM 1 minute, 3200 the next, and 2500 the next. This ensures every single part of the cylinder wall is exposed to a slightly different pressure and temperature. Temperature. This is subtle but important. You need to let the engine go through a full heat cycle. Drive the car until the temperature gauge is completely stable, and then let the car cool off completely before the next drive. This allows the metal to expand and contract, settling any microscopic stresses left over from the factory assembly. Load. Avoid heavy loads. Do not tow anything. Do not fill the car up with 5 people and luggage. Do not drag race. Drive with a light to medium load. The automatic transmission rule. If your car is an automatic, you need to manually shift it sometimes if the car allows it. You want to make sure the transmission uses all of its gears. If your car has a manual mode or paddle shifters, use them to force the car into the highest and lowest gears, within safe speed limits, to get all the gear faces spinning under light load. Phase 3, miles 500 to 1000, the final polish and oil change. By 500 miles, 95% of the critical engine seating is done. The cylinder walls should be smooth and the rings should be tight. From 500 to 1,000 miles, you can gradually start using more power. If the red line is 6,000 RPM, you can start running it up to 4,500 or 5,000. Give it a few bursts of full throttle, but you still want to avoid sustained high-speed, constant RPM driving. The crucial first oil change. This is the second secret that the manufacturer often skips. Many car companies suggest the first oil change at 7,500 or 10,000 miles. This is a massive mistake for the break-in. During the first 500 to 1,000 miles, your oil is not just oil. It is a metallic sludge. Those microscopic flakes of metal that were shed from the piston rings, cylinder walls, and gears. They are floating around in the oil. The oil filter catches a lot of it, but not all of it. If you leave that oil in the engine for 10,000 miles, those metal shavings are getting circulated, grinding away at bearings and other supersensitive parts. The real rule: change your oil and filter between 500 and 1,000 miles, even if the manual says 10,000. That short, sacrificial oil change flushes out almost all of the microscopic break-in debris, allowing the engine to start its real life with clean oil. If you skip this, you are sentencing your engine to a lifetime of slightly accelerated wear. You don't need to switch to expensive synthetic yet. The factory fill oil is often a specific mineral or semi-synthetic blend designed for break-in. Just drain it, put in the same type of oil the manual recommends for that first change, and change the filter. You will sleep better knowing you flushed out the metal debris. Let's specifically talk about the things you absolutely must not do, because these are the actions that permanently damage your engine's future performance. Mistake 1. Long, constant-speed highway trips. This is the #1 engine killer during break-in. You buy the car and you need to drive 300 miles to visit family. You jump on the interstate, set the cruise control at 75 dBNB, and you don't touch a pedal for 3 hours. As we discussed, this puts a constant, boring, medium load on the engine and transmission. The RPMs never change. The piston rings settle into a low-pressure glide and polish the cylinder walls instead of seating into them. The transmission gears wear in only one specific stressed spot. If you must take a highway trip, follow the rule of varying the speed. Drive at 65, then 75, then 60, then 80. Never use cruise control. Better yet, find a scenic route with towns, hills, and stoplights. Mistake 2. Engine braking. Overly aggressively. Engine braking, where you downshift a manual or use the paddles to force a lower gear and slow the car down, creates extremely high vacuum inside the engine. While a little bit of deceleration is good, slamming it into a low gear and letting the RPMs shoot up high without any throttle input can be too much. It pulls too much oil up into the cylinders and can lead to a phenomenon called glazing, where the oil bakes onto the cylinder wall, again, permanently preventing the rings from seating. Everything during break-in needs to be done with moderation and gentle variance. Mistake 3. Starting and stopping repeatedly, without warming up. The first few minutes of an engine's life are the coldest and the most stressed. The oil hasn't reached all the bearing surfaces yet. If you start the car, drive it for 3 minutes to the store, turn it off, and repeat this cycle 5 times, you are subjecting the engine to 5 separate cycles of high-wear cold starts without ever getting the metal up to its intended operating temperature. All of your break-in drives should be at least 15 to 20 minutes long enough for the water temperature gauge to stabilize. Mistake 4. Full throttle runs. The test drive impulse. You want to know how fast your new car is? I get it. But hitting 100% throttle, especially in the low gears, forces extreme pressure onto those still rough piston rings. If one spot of the ring is slightly misaligned or rougher than the rest, that high pressure can chip or excessively wear the spot, creating an uneven seal right away. Save the drag races for after you've changed the oil at 1,000 miles. Use 75% throttle max during the first phase and gradually work your way up. Climax, key moment, the payoff. So why go through all this trouble? Why be so incredibly obsessive for the first 1,000 miles of your car's life? Because the reward is immense, and you can only earn it once. The payoff is an engine that is smoother, more powerful, and lasts longer than an identical engine that was just driven normally. A perfectly seated engine has near zero blow-by. This means 2 things. More power. Every single explosion of gasoline pushes the piston down with maximum force. None of the energy leaks past the rings. You are getting every horsepower the factory promised, and sometimes even a little more. 0 oil consumption. A tight seal means the oil stays where it belongs, in the oil pan. Your engine will run cleaner, your catalytic converters will last longer, and you won't have to constantly carry a spare quart of oil in your trunk, wondering why your brand new engine is drinking oil like a fish. But the most important payoff is the longevity and reliability. You are setting the tolerance for the next 200,000 miles. A properly broken-in engine is less stressed, runs cooler, and will have tighter compression 15 years from now than an engine that wasn't given the attention it needed during its birth. This process is your one shot. You are essentially creating a custom, perfect fit between the piston rings and the cylinder walls that will define the engine's performance for the rest of its working life. Skipping it, or doing it wrong, leads to an engine that is fundamentally handicapped from day one. You can't just drive hard later to fix a bad break-in. Once the metal surfaces polish without seating, the opportunity is gone forever. Conclusion, summary. Let's quickly recap the secret procedure that everyone forgets. First, forget constant speed. The goal of the break-in is to vary everything: load, speed, and RPMs. If you're driving, you should be constantly accelerating, decelerating, and changing gears. Avoid cruise control like the plague for the first 1,000 miles. Second, use some pressure, but avoid full throttle. You need to push the engine up to about 75% throttle to create the pressure needed to seat the piston rings perfectly against the cylinder walls. Coasting down after the push helps remove any loose particles. Third, change the oil early. The most overlooked step is draining the factory oil and filter between 500 and 1,000 miles. That fluid is holding the microscopic metal debris from the seating process. Get it out of your engine and start its life fresh. This procedure isn't complicated, but it requires discipline and patience. But trust me, put in the effort now, and your engine will repay you with thousands of miles of trouble-free driving, making that new car smell last a little bit longer in the form of a healthy, powerful engine. Hit the subscribe button right now if you want to learn more simple secrets that will save you thousands on car repairs.